all settled. Okay. So for today, it's going to be a little bit of a mix of things. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But going forward, you'll be working on your final projects. So with your final projects, it is going to be a group project that you'll be working on with other classmates. And with that, you are able to kind of utilize everything that we learned on so far into that one application and bust out all of the features. So how this will work is that today I'm going to show you some project management techniques and what to expect and everything like that. And then we are going to introduce the projects at the end of the day today. And then by either tonight or tomorrow, we are going to release the groups of who's doing what and who is on which group. With that, you would have around 3 weeks to go ahead and complete that project. And the reason why I say 3 weeks instead of 4, because technically this project is going to be due on launch day, which is February 4th. The reason why we don't have it due right on Friday is because that there are some things that we need to get done before we kind of finish it off and route it off. For example, such as styling would be taking effect this week, as well as production, and also your video for Friday as well. So that's why all of that time during that week will be towards those stuff instead of building out and finishing out the application. So that's why the 3 weeks here is where you are going to go ahead and work on the project as much as possible. And the schedule for the class is going to change as well. So we are going to be switching from Monday and Tuesday lecture. And then we'll have Wednesday and Thursday is going to be your project day. So those two will be the main project days that you'll be working on. There might be some time during Monday and Tuesday, but that's not a guarantee. So that means that technically you have inside of class around 6 days to work on it. And 6 days is not nearly enough to finish a whole entire project. So that's why you have to allocate time outside of class, like either on the weekends, on the weekdays, and before and after class to work on this to kind of meet the deadline for Friday the 4th there. And then on this week, again, we're just cleaning stuff up and finishing everything for that there. So that is timeline wise of what we are going to be doing. And it is a project where we are going to kind of break it up into small manageable parts. And it's not going to be super complex. We'll go ahead and take out all of the complex features, and it'll be very similar to what we're doing with our video game library application. There might be some different like associations and things like that, but it will be very similar with that there. But yeah, so that is timeline wise of what we are planning to do. So there are going to be like specific goals of what we are going to be doing, such as for this first weekend and on Wednesday, we'll try to get the initial project started as well as the initial database schema planned out and authentication. And then the next few weeks is just going to be busting out the CRUD actions and all of the features from there. And then afterwards, this final week is to do the finishing touches with styles and then put it live in the production server. And then that is when you are going to round up those features from there. So there is going to be like kind of milestones of what we are going to be doing with the projects. And that would be going depending on what project it is and where everyone is at with that. So is there any questions about how the schedule will change a little bit later on?
So when you said that you'll let us know what groups we'll be in and what we'll be doing, are you gonna assign us to like certain parts of the project, or are we gonna is it gonna be up to us to decide?
Yeah, that is a good question. So so today at around 8-ish, that is when Will's going to come in and present the projects. And I think there's around 3 to 5 projects that you all will get to choose from. And you would have your first choice, second choice, and third choice. And then out of those choices, we are going to make groups from those projects and those choices. So that would take some time. It would be either tonight or tomorrow is when you can find those out. And then after you figure those groups out, like let's say you're working on like a contact list, another one is a to-do list, and another one is a grocery list, for example. Again, those probably won't be the projects, but those are just examples sake. And what you are going to be doing with that is that you are going to break up the application in small manageable parts. And I'm going to talk about Trello in a sec to do that. And then how that would work is that you are going to be kind of tackling tasks together as well as separate. So that way you can have a lot of work done and to have it be working as much as possible. So I'll give you an example and that would make a little bit more sense with that of how to tackle a big project like what's coming up. Any other questions about the schedule? So with this project, it is going to be treated like a hackathon. Meg and I, we will be here for your help, but most of the, well, all of the application is going to be written by all of you. And then if there are errors and stuff like that, you have to kind of try to fix it internally. And then if there are major errors, that's when you would come to us with those errors from there. So that is how kind of what our role is that we're more project managers. We're more to keep all of the projects in check to make sure that tasks are being done. And if we need to make some changes, we can and things like that. So that's what our role is. Our roles isn't developers. That's where you are all doing is that you are all being developers inside of these next few weeks for the applications. So you'll be going ahead and kind of picking up tasks and then completing those tasks in a timely manner. And then again, if there are some errors arise, we can kind of address how that would work. Before we go on a little bit more about the final project, there is the Hackathon 2 coming up on the 15th. And again, with that, that is going to be very similar again with what we're doing with the video game app. And it is also going to be separate than your final project. So that will be a totally different project that you'll be working on that whole entire day. And the difference with this one is that it is a create your own project. So we'll put you into separate groups from your final project. And then you are going to discuss and talk amongst yourself about what you want to build for that. I'm going to kind of type out the logistical stuff of what you would need and present those Monday and then the actual stuff on Thursday. But the main thing is that you can't build something that we already built. Like obviously you can't do like a contact list or to-do list because we already did that before. And then it has to be something that is functional with multiple models with a database and a front end and all of that. So you can kind of think about that until then. And then on Thursday, that's when we can kind of pump the brakes a bit with the final projects and talk about Hackathon 2 of what you all want to build and doing for that. Depending on where everyone is at, because I need to double check some stuff with the assignments and stuff, there might be some pre-existing code that is available to you for Hackathon 2. What that means is that there might be code that is created for you. So you just have to clone it down. And then with that, you are working off of that going forward. So example of that is that if we, for some weird reason, are doing a to-do list, I would give you like the first model already done. And then you have to do model 2, 3, and 4, for example. So that'll be something that you can kind of might expect for a Hackathon 2. Is there any questions about Hackathon 2 coming up? Go ahead, Daniel.
It's not necessarily about Hackathon 2, but what time is the UX design on the 7th?
So any lectures on the 7th, those are all extra lectures. Those are all going to be released on the individual lectures on Neo.
Oh, so we don't, it's not something we go to, it's just something that we can review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about Hackathon 2 before we go back to the final projects? Sweet. So I'm going to introduce to you some tools that we'll be using for the final project. Some of them you already used before, like GitHub and Lucidchart to kind of plan things out. And this here is going to be Trello. Has anyone used Trello or Asana or anything similar to this type of platform?
Yeah, I've used it for work before.
Oh, nice. Sweet. But yeah, we'll have our own lecture on this to be more in depth. I think Stephanie, can you give a one-liner of what like this kind of project management tool is for?
Yeah, I've used it for like an event before. It just kind of helps map out all of the different tasks that have to be done for the final project to be complete. And I was really good for working on a team to just for everyone to feel like they knew where everyone else was at and what was done so that something wasn't being done twice. That's not one line, but yeah, that's my summary.
Yeah, that is a awesome description of what Trello is and similar systems to Trello. So all it is really good for either projects or event management. And it helps you keep track of all of your resources all in one place, as well as tasks. And then how we'll be using it is that we'll have different boards for each project. So each of your project will have its own board, which is this whole entire window here. And with the boards, we'll have something called these lists here. These are like the gray boxes that you see here. And those are just categories of where we're putting the cards. So here, this is where we'll put all the resources, all of the updates, any questions we have, any bugs or errors to do in progress, etc. So those are going to be categories of how we are going to separate our cards. And what cards are is that it is just kind of the content for that category. So here, these are all of the resources for this project. So here's the GitHub, the wireframe, the Lucidchart, things like that. That would go into this section here. And then if you have questions, you would have them here and updates and all that. The main parts is going to be this section over here, mostly these. It could be more or less, you would need at least the to-dos in progress and done. What staging and debugging are, those are just if you are testing it and they're on GitHub, they just need to get checked before it goes into the final push on master. So that's what the difference between those are. So you could definitely make more cards or categories from those, but the main ones for sure is going to be to-dos in progress and done. And what this is that instead of saying, hey, go build out a application for golf, right? That is such a huge task, right? You don't know where to start, what to do, or how to begin. What we are going to do with that is that we're going to break that up in small manageable parts. And we are going to break those up into more small manageable parts and put those all in the to-dos. So that way, instead of saying create a whole golf application website, I can just say create the authentication. That's a much more manageable thing for us to do rather than building out the whole thing. So what we would do is that we'll create tasks and to-dos from the individual projects. So an example is that it will be the first model, second model. For this project, this is something that the students work on last cohort. This was just a medication planner. So it just reminds users of when to take their medication and what medications they need to take. So here you can see that there is going to be a user's model they have to complete. And then you'll go into different controllers. And then you'll go into different components and providers that you see here. So that will go ahead and kind of split up the work. So not like one person is tackling everything and then other people are just doing like just styling or whatever. This kind of ensures that the work is laid out into a small manageable parts. And then what you are going to be doing with this is that you are going to assign yourself to a task. That's where you see these abbreviations here. Those are all former students, and that is going to be what they are in charge of for the week. And you should only be in charge of one or two things, or else if you do multiple things, you could be easily overwhelmed and you might not finish what you started. So that's why in the in progress portion, when you move a to do into in progress, you're going to put your name onto there. So for example, if I were to work on this, I am going to do members and then add myself to this individual task. So that lets me and other people know that I'm working on the style medication detail feature. So that is how you know who's doing what, and you're not stepping on each other's toes, and you're not duplicating work that doesn't have to be. There are going to be some tasks that might require more people, like the initial creation of the application or doing authentication. You can add more people with that as well, or you can pair up with someone and work on a task. That is totally fine, as long as you kind of visualize that here inside of Trello, you can kind of see who is doing what from there. So that's what we'll be using Trello for. And we'll go ahead and do the to-dos portion inside of there. After I kind of split off the groups, I'm going to create your Trello as well as your GitHubs as well, so you don't need to worry about that. If you haven't already, I would sign up for Trello, but I would actually wait for tomorrow to sign up, because then after you sign up, you would then immediately get invited into the board of whatever project you're assigned to. So I would sign up, but yeah, we'll use it more tomorrow or over the weekend. And then if you have a task that is a reoccurring error, like for example, this bug here, then you would move it into the bugs side. So that's where you can kind of be having errors, but you're not stuck on that error for the majority of the time or the remainder of the time that you're working on the project. So if there are errors and you can't solve it within like 20 to 30 minutes, put that in the bug section. And then with the bug section, you can come back to that error. If it's a high priority error, you can do labels and stuff if you want to, do different colors if you want to. Then that's when like the whole team can jump on it, or someone else can jump on it to kind of get that up and running. So you can kind of work through that and everything in that regard. So the goal of this Trello board is to kind of put all of your resources in one place, as well as questions and updates, and then all of the tasks inside of the to-dos when you initially start. And then when you are working on the project, you'll be moving cards to the in progress, signing your name into that card. And then once you're done with that, you are then going to be moving it to staging, which is going to be, what that means is that you have it push into your own branch on GitHub, and it needs to be code reviewed. And I'll talk about that in a sec when we go into GitHub of what we're doing in GitHub. So once it is approved, then it will go into done. If it's not approved, like let's say there is some conflicts, then you have to move it back to in progress and work on it to fix those conflicts. So it will go back to these three things majority of the time when you are working on it. But yeah, that is the gist of Trello. And there are a lot of tools out there like this inside of GitHub. There is one called Projects that is similar, and Asana is another popular one, and things like that. Any questions about Trello? So yeah, the more we use it, the more it'll make more sense, and then how the flow is with everything like that. So, well, a few more things about the final projects. So we'll be obviously using GitHub with this project. And what we are going to be doing, let me kind of go to the repository of the video game app, for example. is that I'll go ahead and create the repository and invite you all to the repository once the groups are figured out. And it would be the initial push is going to be on GitHub. And then every push after that, you have to do within your own branch. So everyone in the group will work on their own branch. And how you are going to name your branch is whatever feature it is that you're working on. So for example, if you're working on like the homepage, then the branch name would also be homepage. So you would be doing the branching technique. And with that branching technique, everyone will work on their own branch. And then once you are good to go, you are going to pull the code from master, see if there are any conflicts. If there are conflicts, which in most likely cases there are, you're going to communicate that to whoever was working on that or the entire team to work out that conflict. With that conflict, you are going to try to resolve it as best as possible. And then once it is resolved, then you will push your branch onto GitHub. Once you push your branch onto GitHub, you are then going to do a pull request, and then someone else will review your code. It could be someone that is in your team, or it could be one of us. I would recommend one of us if it's like for those bigger features like authentication and the database planning out. But for other things like for creating a controller or creating a component, you can have your teammates to look at that. As long as you're not reviewing your own code, I don't think GitHub's let you do that anyway, then you are good from there. So that's what the staging part is inside of Trello, is that part right there. I can kind of go and review this real quick. I don't know if I can create my own conflict. I'll try my best to do that. And then I'll kind of show you the flow of what each of you will be doing. So let me get this up and running. But before I do, what I am going to do is that once you have the initial project on GitHub, and then clone it down or pull it down or whatever it is that you are doing, you're then immediately going to your own branch. So this is what each team member would need to do. So it would be get checkout -b. And this is listed inside of the sheets. I'll show you where to find that in a sec. I'm just going to go through this first. And then the name of your branch. So let's, for example, say I'm working on the homepage. And then you would go ahead and press enter. And then if you want to see what branch you are on, you do get branch, and then that is the current branch you are on. So now you are in another timeline of your code. And with that timeline, you are working on that feature. So this is how you are able to go ahead and work on your own thing without overlapping of what other people are doing. And we would rarely never work inside of the master branch. So if you are in the master branch and you have been coding for a while, make sure you save that with the add and commit and then check out to another branch. So that is the main thing, is to not manipulate the master branch, because that is where our most updated code is. Go ahead, Freddie.
So I was just wondering, because you said, so you would work on whatever, the code you're doing, then you do, like you do get add, get commit, and then you do get checkout, or?
This is at the very beginning of
Okay.
when you are doing things. So once you decide what feature it is that you're doing, this is where you're checking out immediately.
Okay, all right, perfect, thank you.
I'm just going to make a quick change here so you can kind of see the process. So I'm going to change something in the home page. I'll say my home page. And then I'll change this to like a H2. Hopefully that creates a conflict, but I'm not 100% sure. And then let's say that this is done and I am done with my feature. Here are the steps of what you are going to do. So make sure you save it, run it, make sure there are no errors. So because you don't want to push errors to GitHub. And then this here, I am going to go ahead and do a get add. which will add my changes and get commit of a change home page. And then if you are planning to work on more things, go ahead and work on it and then add and commit those changes as you go. But once you are absolutely done with that feature, you are then going to add and commit one last time. And then what you are going to do is that you are going to do a get checkout master. So this will change you to the master branch. And this is the code that is inside of the master branch. What you want to do is that this is your local master branch. You need to have your local master branch up to date with GitHub's master branch. So how to do that is with get fetch origin master. And then the next command is get rebase origin / master. And then if it says master branch is up to date, that means you have the most up-to-date code. And then if you have conflicts, this is where it will show it. And if there are anything else, it will also show it here. Once you do that and fix any conflicts, you are then going to switch into your branch now. So it will be get checkout homepage. And you are running those same steps. So here in the homepage branch, you are going to have your homepage local branch up to date with the code from GitHub. So then we are going to do a get fetch origin master and then get rebase origin / master. There's no space here. So it looks like it took those changes pretty well. Let me see if I can do something real quick that can kind of make it a conflict so you can kind of see that process. So give me 1 sec to change this real quick. Do a H5. So now let me run those steps again and hopefully we get a conflict. Because if it's this message, that means that your code is able to merge and that's fine. But in most cases, you would get a conflict. So we'll do get fetch origin master. And then get rebase origin / master. So here, I'll kind of spread this up a bit so you can see this better. This is what your conflicts will look like. It'll say the word conflict here, and it'll also tell you where that conflict is. And in this case, I only have one. Sometimes you have multiple. So make sure that you go through all of the conflicts before you move forward. So here, my conflict is inside of the home.js. So that is the folder and file that I should go into. And it is in shared home.js. So this is what a conflict will look like inside of your VS Code. And this is where you are going to kind of talk to your teammate or whoever was working on this class of what you did and what the other person did and what changes to help resolve those conflicts. So let's say that in my case, I wanted a H2, and let's say Meg is also working on this. She wanted a H5. So we would kind of discuss and kind of go into a discussion of which change it is that we want to have. So for example, if you want the current change, you would press this button up here. It will highlight blue of accept current change. So that is the change coming from GitHub. If you want to accept your change, it will be this incoming change here. So that will be the change that you are pushing into GitHub. So that will be the changes you have on your machine. You can also do accept both changes, and then you can also do more stuff with that. But those are the three main ones that you are going to be doing. So let's say in my case, I want to accept the incoming change, then I would press that or current or both changes. But there are some rare cases that I actually want mine with a mix of what is on GitHub. So if that's the case, I'm going to accept both cases here and going to change this instead of H5, I'll say my homepage. And then I can go ahead and delete that. So it's kind of a combination of what we have from my computer and what is on GitHub. So if that is the case, you would go ahead and make that change and then continue on if there are any other conflicts. Luckily for us, that was the only conflict. Once you are done, you would need to do these following steps. And again, I'll show you where you can find these steps unless so you don't forget what to do. So the steps that you would need to do is that you need to do a get add. So that will add those changes. And don't do a get commit here because that will take you into a rebase loop. It will continue to rebase you throughout the whole entire thing. So what you need to do at this point is going to be get rebase -- continue. So this will continue the rebase, see if there are any changes inside of your code, and then it'll take you into Vim. So again, this is what Vim is. It is a editor that is built in inside of your terminal. So the main thing in this state is just to get out of Vim. So to do that, make sure that you are inside of command mode, because if you press I, that'll take you to insert mode, and you'll know because it says insert down here. To get out of it, you would press escape. So escape will take you to normal mode or command mode. And then what you are going to do at this spot is going to be shift : and then WQ. So shift to do the regular colon, and then WQ to write and quit. So then once you do that and press enter, then if there are additional rebases and conflicts, it will show those, and you would need to run through those processes again. If there aren't any and it says successfully rebase, now your code is up to date with what is on GitHub. So now with that step being done and all of my changes are done, you can now do a get push origin and then the name of your branch. Again, I'm going to set this up in a way where you can't push to master. So that way we don't like overwrite someone's code. So you would have to push into your home branch here, or whatever the name of your branch here. So once you go ahead and do that, you are going to go into GitHub. And then if it shows up here, you can press this, and that will create a pull request. Or you can go into pull requests, and then you can do a new one manually. If you want to do it manually, the base branch is always master, and then the compare is going to be your branch. So here, if I were to create a pull request, you can kind of see all of the changes, and then create the pull request here. You can add in additional comments. Let's say that change the home page to be a small title, like so. And then you can also over here, it doesn't show up here because in this project, I'm not working with anyone. But over here, you can go ahead and add in additional people to review. So let's say that if there's something important that you want a TA or me to look at, then like auth or database design or anything like that, then you would assign us to it. Or if it is something else, it would be whoever else is on your team, you can assign them to this pull request. So then once you go ahead and create the pull request, it should say all checks has passed and it has no conflicts. If it has conflicts, that means that you didn't do this step here. So if you ever do a pull request and it says it has conflicts, you forgot to do this step here. We don't want conflicts on GitHub because it's a little bit harder to do it on GitHub. It's a little bit easier to have fixed conflicts inside of your terminal. So that's why you would do this step here before you do a pull request. And then at this point in time, let's say Meg is working on this as well, and she will go ahead and peer review my code. How that would work, and this is what Meg would be doing, is that she'll go through all of my commits. Right now I only have one, but there might be multiple. And she is going to check the code to make sure that everything is what we have discussed. If it is, then review changes is going to be approved. And that means that you're all good to go and you're able to merge into master. or else it would be request changes. And in some cases, it would be request changes because this means that there is something wrong with this and you need to go back and work on it a little bit more. If you do request changes, make sure you leave a comment of why you're requesting changes. So for example, it's like, I thought we discussed that this should be a H2, not a H5, etc. And then submit the review. So yeah, so your goal is to have it approved eventually, but in some cases you might have the request changes from that. And then once it is approved, then you are able to do a merge pull request. If it's not approved, if there are some request changes, make sure you work through that. And then you would have to push again to the branch and that will update this pull request here. Once you do a merge pull request and do a confirm merge, that will go ahead and combine your code and your branch into the code inside of GitHub's master branch. So now the one inside of master is going to be up to date with what you have. And I would also do a practice of deleting your branch on GitHub as well, just so you can have a little bit more leniency and kind of clean things up as you go. So now inside of the main master branch, it would have everything that I had before, plus the change that I did inside of the homepage. So then while other people are finishing up their tasks, they would run through the same steps and they would grab whatever's inside of master, and they would also grab my change homepages change as well. So that is kind of the flow of what you are going to be doing within your group. And you might be tempted to do this all at once. If you do somehow finish all at once with your tasks, I would just do this process one at a time, because if you do it all at once, then you have to repeat some of these steps over again. So that's why I would just have one person do it, push it to GitHub, and another person, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the flow of what is going on. And this is written out inside of the sheets. So let me go ahead and show you where that is again. And you also will have this video as well as the GitHub video to kind of go through that process again. So this would be in Get Flow. And then we'll be doing the collaboration flow here of the cloning and all that. And then one person will create the project. And then this here is what we were just doing, is this collab flow. So that's the fetch and then the rebase step. And then if there are conflicts, you resolve them. And then you would run these commands and then push to your branch name. And then rinse and repeat for all of that and do your pull request. So yeah, any questions about that workflow within GitHub?
So with the git fetch and the git rebase, those commands, you're only using those when you're working in like different branches, right?
Yes. So these two commands combined will grab the most up-to-date code from GitHub.
Okay.
So
yeah,
if you
I've
want
done
to
it in
do
like
that
previous.
anytimes, yeah, you would.
Okay. Yeah, I've done it in like previous groups and just it was completely wrong. I realized. So
yeah,
good
it
to
does
know.
take some time. You'll definitely struggle with it the first few times for sure, but then you'll start to get the hang of it.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I've gotten like the accept incoming change. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. But
Yep.
Cool.
Any other questions about this flow? Okay, so one last thing that I will talk about for now is how the project will look like inside of each of the individual projects and what is expected and what you are going to be doing with the project. So for each project, you are going to be given a few things. So these are the things that we'll provide for you. What you'll be in charge of is to kind of build out like the to-dos and building out all of the features. So you don't have to worry about these things that I'm about to mention. So this will be given for you all. So the first thing is GitHub. We already talked about that, as well as Trello. And again, we already talked about those things. The other things is going to be a wireframe. And we briefly talked about wireframes before. And we're using Figma, which is a tool to create wireframes. And essentially what wireframes are is that it is a visual representation of what the client wants for the application itself. So this is kind of what it would look like here. So I'm going to take you through different versions, and your wireframes will change depending on where you're at within the project. So at the beginning, it would be a little bit more conceptual stuff. So it will look like this. So this will kind of help you plan out the database of how the flow is, and here's the home page of what it needs to do, and the calendar page and what it needs to do. So that is kind of like the conceptual part of this area. Then you are given grayscales. And what grayscales are is that it is just a kind of basic layout of what it is that you are going to be building. So this isn't the final styles or anything, but it just tells you that you need a nav bar with these different pages, and there is also different pages that, and this is what they have and what it will look like. So the layout and the content will be here. So you can kind of see that, oh, you need some sort of a clock and a date. And then you also need some medication listed out here. And this is my medication and medication details and things like that, and then the profile. So that is what you would see, and what the client would want of what you are building. So then with this, you are going to break it up into the to-do items, like inside of the Trello. And you can go ahead and break up the component of the nav bar, the component of the medicine and medicine details. So this would be considered like the medicine index, where it shows all of the medicine. And this would be like your individual medicines that you are taking. And then like the details would be like more of a show like that. So you'll able to do all CRUD actions for all of your models. So that's how you are going to kind of tackle this, is that you're given these two things towards the beginning of the project, and you're kind of breaking out your models and your tasks off of that. So for sure, it looks like you need like a calendar and like a about page and home page and some settings. And the main part is going to be the medicine stuff. And then once we go a little bit closer down the line, you're then given some mockups. And these are more detailed wireframes of what it is that the client wants. So this is what he wants, of how it wants it to be looked and styled and laid out. And this is what you are going to match as best as possible to this design. So you have to have your application look very similar of what you see here, design-wise and layout-wise. So that will kind of push you a little bit out of the comfort zone, more into styling, to kind of work with how you would kind of size things up and lay things out and everything like that. For stuff like images and colors, like you see like this logo here and this color and these other things, those are also going to be given for you as well. That will be inside of brand guidelines. And this is where you can go ahead and kind of see what typography or fonts they're using and color and different logos for different pages. Here are the colors as well as the RGB values, what fonts, and then if there are icons, they will put them there as well. Not all projects will have some of these, but yeah, the main stuff will be given for you as well. So that is what is expected, is that in the end that you are going to close off the project, it should look very similar of how the client wants it, like this. So it should look very much like what you see here, but actually have it working. Yeah. Any questions about that process of how this would progress? probably one thing you didn't notice is that this looks like a phone application more than a web application. And that really depends on the application or project it is that you're working on. So if it's a web-based application, then it will be sized up into a web application. But if it's a phone, you have to make it look good on mobile. And I think all of these sites needs to look good on mobile anyways. As a reminder, what you can do with that is that you can go ahead and I don't think I can do it in Figma. I'll do it here. Is that you can just do right click inspect. And then what you would do here is that it will be this icon right here of the mobile devices. And then you can switch to different mobile devices to see how that looks like. And again, you are trying to match up what you see here with what is inside of the wireframes as best as possible. And in most cases, for most of these projects, you would start off from mobile, which is what you see here, and then scale up from there. So what I mean by that is that this is what it'll look like in mobile, but then when you go to tablet or website, then this could be multiple columns and rows and everything like that. So that might be like, instead of showing one row for each medicine, it could be one row with like 3 medicine in one row. So that's what you are going to be doing, is that the design itself should be mainly focused on mobile friendly first and then scaling up from there. But that's more for a little bit later for when you are styling. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind when you are adding things and laying things out, is that make sure that it's good to look at mobile and then you're scaling up from there in that regard. So yeah, any final questions about what's coming up with the projects or anything? So what I would recommend is that once Will talks about the projects, hopefully I can get that in as soon as possible tonight, if not tomorrow. I'm going to Slack out the groups. As soon as I Slack out the groups, one thing I do recommend is to kind of get a head start instead of waiting for Monday to come. And what you would do is that there would be just the planning phase with that. So you'll have your Trello already given to you, as well as your GitHub and everything like that. So you can go ahead and kind of work through and kind of see everyone's schedule, because again, you have to go ahead and work on this outside of class. And it might be hard for this class because I know some people have jobs and other things that they are worrying about during the day. So I would try to find a time at least once outside of class to kind of get together to work on things. And then if scheduling permits or not permit, you might need to kind of work with someone or work with other people over the weekend or something like that. So that's something that you can do over the weekend, is to kind of plan out a day or a time that will work for all of you, so you can kind of come back together with everything to see who's doing what and all that. And then you can go ahead and get started on database planning, but we'll go ahead and approve that either Tuesday or Wednesday in class. And then you'll be working on authentication around this time as well. So that's kind of the timeline of what is going to go on over the weekend and next week. So yeah, I would definitely recommend you all to do that here. One thing I don't know, but we'll tell you a little bit later, is that you'll have weekly Scrum meetings with the project client. So for example, Will might be a project client, and I want to say Wednesday, but he'll give you a time and day of he'll be meeting with the group. And then what you are going to do during that meeting is that you'll kind of tell the client of where you are at with the project. And this isn't a thing where you are showing code. It's very similar to what we did with the hackathon, is showing the result of what you have so far on the website. So that's where you can kind of show that, or tell Will or the client that, hey, we're still working on back-end stuff, so there's nothing to show yet. But we're planning to get this, and this done by next meeting. So that's what is probably going to go during Wednesday's meeting with that. Sweet. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this around 8:15. What I'm planning to have you do for the rest of the night is that we'll take a quick break. When you come back from break, I'll put you all in breakout rooms and you can go ahead and finish off any assignments that you need to work on, like either handyman or personal portfolio. If you don't have anything to work on, you can always add more to your personal portfolio. For example, you can add in a blog. So you already have a contacts page. You can go ahead and add in authentication if you want to, and maybe a blog aspect to it, and that could help work with that. Or you can use that time to also review some of the lectures so you can kind of prep for what's coming up as well. So it really depends on you of what you do for the next hour or so to kind of help prep you for the final project, or if you want to work on anything. And then at 8:15ish, I'll close out the breakout rooms and then we'll talk about the final projects from there. Go ahead, Daniel.
Were we supposed to add in a blog to the personal portfolio?
I think it was extra content, like it was a bonus objective.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, the only objective that you would need for this would be just the contact and then a few other pages from there. Go ahead, Danny.
So with the final project, are you wanting us to utilize like the context API and stuff? Are we going to be using all that?
Yep. So you'll be
Okay.
using everything that we've been using in the video game app. So it'll be context
Okay.
API, React on Rails, React Router, and then depending on what app it is, you might need to use Moment and other style libraries, but it's up to you of how you are styling it. In most cases, if you're given like this wireframe, you might need to roll with your own styles sometimes with a mix of what
Sweet.
the library has.
Awesome. Thanks, Henry.
Yep. Sweet. Any other questions of what we are doing today or the final project? But yeah, it's definitely going to be a journey. There's going to be ups and downs. You'll feel some stress, but don't worry, everyone goes through it. And once you hit the final like end, it will be such a relief to see how far you come and what you built with all that time. So just hang in there for this final push for sure.
I've got like 5 strands of hair left this far into the cohort.
Oh yeah, save that up for sure. Sweet, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back from break, I'll break you out into breakout rooms. So let's come back at 7:10.